When you prosecute the parents for coming in illegally, which should happen, you have to take the children away. Now, we don't have to prosecute them, but then we're not prosecuting them for coming in illegally. That's not good.
That's Donald Trump today, echoing in his own way what other officials have said about the policy of separating children from their adults, their parents at the border. You can't arrest those illegally crossing the border without separating them from their kids. And Trump says there's no choice in the matter. In his administration's quest to toughen the border, the well-being of kids, collateral damage.
Cali te va a ayudar. ¿Cierto? ¿Qué va a pasar con su consulado?
This anguish, heard inside an unnamed detention facility obtained by ProPublica, is hard to hear. The images captured at the border foreshadowing what's to come. Children already sensing the fear, confused, dejected as their adults get detained. The fear, of course, more justified than they may know. The actual separations happen later, away from cameras. For more on the impact this has had on the thousands of kids reportedly separated and for some insight on what might happen to them next, I'm joined by Dr. Georges Benjamin. He's Executive Director of American Public Health Association. He's in Washington. Janet Gwilym is an attorney with Kids in Need of Defense. She is in Portland tonight. And Dr. Cristina Munez is Mental Health Director of the Terra Firma program, and she's in New York. Good to see you all. Appreciate you making the time for this country, where we're watching, obviously, with interest as this story unfolds. Maybe I'll start with you, Dr. Benjamin. Why is it important for organizations like yours to speak out? When you see the pictures that we've all seen, heard that audio tape, what is the thing that worries you and compelled you to speak out?
Well, you know, it's about the health impact of these kids. You know, it's the fact that we know that this sudden separation has not only an acute and negative impact on their health, but it can have long-term implications in a variety of areas. And so we're really concerned about it from that perspective. It's also an issue of fundamental justice.
What are some of the areas where you would be most concerned because of this forced separation, unexpected separation? What kinds of things would you be worried about happening to the child?
Well, you know, obviously the immediate concerns are they're fearful, they're scared, they lose their trust. That can result in a whole range of behavior activities. You know, anyone who has left their child at a daycare center or with any other kind of babysitter knows that you plan those kind of separations.
Sure.
You talk to the children, you talk to the people that are going to take care of your child, and sometimes when you come back, they're still very disturbed, even though they've been taken good care of.
Yeah.
But when this kind of separation occurs, these children have just a range of behavior problems afterwards. They don't sleep well, they don't eat well, and you know, particularly the young ones, frankly, with the stress that occurs, they can actually have some long-term impact on their brain function. And so that's one of the long-term things we're worried about.
So Dr. Munez, you haven't seen any of these children, but you have seen children in situations similar to this. What kinds of things do you see the children exhibit in the immediate, in the aftermath?
Well, in the immediate, as Dr. Benjamin mentioned, there's a lot of different symptoms of acute stress. You see a lot of developmentally regressed behaviors, like kids that cling to their caretakers once they are reunited with them and they develop separation anxiety. They may become withdrawal. They may develop depressive symptoms. Yeah. A whole array of different reactions in the immediate moment, but the most concerning is the long-term impact in their cognitive functioning, in their relationship styles, their ability to develop relationships throughout their lives with peers, with caretakers, with adults, and with their own partners as adult individuals.
Because of attachment issues, I would imagine. So Janet, your organization helps from the legal perspective. Give us a sense of what would be happening to these children who are obviously too young to be able to advocate for themselves. I understand some of them don't have documents or papers, so it's hard to even know who's in the system. Give us a sense of that part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so our organization represents unaccompanied immigrant children. All of the kids that we work with have originally been put into the custody of the Office of Refugee Resettlement and are staying in shelters or other types of facilities that are contracted with the Office of Refugee Resettlement. And we begin, they're all placed into removal proceedings in the immigration courts and charged with immigration violations. But because these are administrative courts, the children are not guaranteed the right to a court-appointed attorney. And so they have a right to have an attorney, but not to have a court-appointed attorney. So that's where we come in and provide representation for them. But it's a very, very complicated process.
And what is the likelihood that these children get lost in the system or never find their parents again? How often does that happen?
Well, the latest round of family separation is pretty new, so it's hard to tell what the ultimate results are going to be. The children that we've been in contact with have eventually, after sometimes months, been able to reconnect with their parents, but some of them, the parents have been deported and the children are still in the U.S. The children still have claims to asylum, so they won't be necessarily being reunited with their parents.
Okay, so Dr. Benjamin, when you look at this unfolding, does it remind you of other incidents of separation? Because certainly we have talked about that in this country, other times where these kinds of things have happened, and we know that it does long-term damage.
Yeah, you know, you think about all the kinds of separation that you have when you have divorce, or you have a one of the parents dies, or both parents die, or and tragically, during the war, when we had the Japanese internment camps, there's a whole range of experiences where we know and we've looked back at the health and well-being of those populations. And when you do these kinds of forced incarcerations and forced separations, particularly when taking the children away from their parents, they have significant health impact. And that health impact is not good.
Right, and the fact that they may not even have contact with their parents throughout that period that they are detained, because it doesn't sound like anyone's getting a phone call or anything. What do we think would be the impact of that, being completely severed from that relationship? Maybe Dr. Benjamin and then Dr. Munez.
Yeah, you know, you don't know if you don't know what's happened to your parents. The other problem is not just that you can't contact them, but that the people that you are in contact with have no clue as what's going on with your parents, and are unable to give you that information. Right. You know, when you have a babysitter watching your kids, you know when the parents are going to come back, and you can tell the kids, yeah, your parents say they're going to be back at 10 o'clock, so not to worry. But when you don't know that creates more fear, more distrust, and bigger problems for that child as they go through life.
So, Dr. Munez, what do you say to kids in those situations, either during it or after, as they try to come to terms with what's happened?
What do you tell them? I would be out of words on what to tell them. And unfortunately, because of the limitations, I don't know that people around them are able to even give them the comfort. But what these kids need is some level of certainty and some comfort. And it's impossible in those circumstances. You know, there's now a lot of research that has been comparing even immigrant children that have been separated with those that have not been separated. And the immigrants that have been separated develop a lot more symptoms of anxiety and depression than those that are not separated. So having a parent going through the stressful experience of migrating to a new country, being detained, and all of that uncertainty, it's less distressful when you have a parent next to you. But if your parent is taken from you in such traumatic circumstances, then it's a lot more distressful.
Janet, I'll go back to you. How long can these kids be detained in these, I mean, they're not dire circumstances, but they're certainly not good?
So the process is when they are picked up at the border, they're initially in the custody of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and then if they're identified as being an unaccompanied minor, or if they're separated from their parent and become an unaccompanied minor, they have to be transferred to the custody of the Office of Refugee Resettlement within 72 hours. Mm-hmm. And once they're in that system, they're transferred to facilities around the country that are contracted with the Office of Refugee Resettlement. And they vary from short-term shelter facilities to staff secure to secure facilities to long-term foster care situations. traditionally, unaccompanied children, about 90, 92, 93% of them do eventually get reunified with a family member, but that process has been lengthening, and it can take anywhere from, the shortest I've probably seen is 3 weeks to 4 weeks, but also to well over a year. Yeah. And then for those children who don't have any options of being released to a sponsor, they will stay in custody up until they turn 18, which can then be several years.
I only have about a minute left. I'd like to hear one thought from all three of you on what you would tell the president, knowing what you know about kids and separation and how they develop. Dr. Benjamin, what would you tell him?
Let's stop separating children from their parents.
Janet?
Period.
Same thing, and just realize you have children of your own, and imagine what would happen, if your children, your grandchildren were separated from their parents, and how awful that would be.
Dr. Munez, yes?
I would like to say that this is not protecting our country in any way.
Thank you all so much for your perspectives tonight. I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.